A new CTV-W5 investigation is looking into the divisive issue of where to store some of Ontario's nuclear waste.
If you want to build a repository, I really don't think it's a wise idea to put it right next to Lake Huron.
The argument, of course, against that is that it's safer for the general public below ground than it is above ground.
And I haven't seen proof of that.
This is just that woman, one of thousands of people who have signed a petition against Ontario Power Generation's proposal to build an underground bunker for nuclear waste a little more than a kilometre away from Lake Huron. Joining us now with a preview is CTV special correspondent Lloyd Robertson. Good to see you here this morning.
Good morning, Emery.
You went to speak not only with the politicians, but the people involved, the experts involved. This is not just an issue for people in Canada. People across the lake in Michigan concerned as well. What did you hear from them?
Well, on both sides of the lake, the Great Lakes, 187 communities all told, and that includes big cities like Chicago, Toronto, Hamilton, all opposing it. And what we found was that the greatest single concern, of course, is that it's going to be 1.2 kilometres from the lake. Now, people don't think about this much, but Ontario gets 60% of its electricity from nuclear energy. There are other provinces which use some degree of nuclear energy. Quebec does, New Brunswick does, but Ontario is the biggest and the biggest user. It's cheap, it's clean, and in many, many ways, it does the job for us, but it comes with that unwelcome byproduct of nuclear waste and what to do with it. For 40 years, they've been storing it up at Bruce Power, which is, by the way, the largest nuclear power plant in the world in Kincardine. And the waste is trucked there from the other plants in Pickering and Darlington. And it has been stored up to this time in containers, partially above ground, partially in ground. But what they want to do now is dig what they call a deep geologic repository. They're going to put it down 680 meters. It'll be as deep as the CN Tower is tall.
Wow. And
it will be, according to OPG, the Ontario Power Generation Corporation, which manages nuclear waste for all of Ontario. They claim that it's going into impermeable rock, which has not been shaken in 450 million years. So they have no doubt that this is the best place to put it, right there. But the rub, of course, is that it's 1.2 kilometers away from Lake Huron.
So what did you hear when you asked residents about this? Because they see that it's only, a kilometre away from their lake. And, of course, they're concerned. These are lakes that provide drinking water to tens of millions of people.
Well, they're worried because they know a lot of them have done a lot of research on this already. Some of the opposition groups, in fact, have become almost professional in the sense that they know so much about it, almost as much as some of the experts. But they know that putting that kind of waste down there, and this is low-level and intermediate-level waste, by the way, not the really radioactive stuff, that is the nuclear fuel rods, but level 1 waste, which includes mops, brooms, protective clothing, that kind of thing, that remains radioactive for 300 years. The intermediate level waste, which includes things like filters and machinery and things to deal with handling the heavy water, that can remain active for 100,000 years. So that's all going into this bunker called the Deep Geologic Repository, 680 meters below.
You took these concerns of the residents to the president of Ontario Power Generation. Let's have a listen to what he had to say.
You have identified some rock formations outside the area of Kincardine in Northern Ontario, Southern Ontario. Why not move it? Because this seems to be all about worrying about the lake.
While this repository is geographically close to the lake, geologically, Lloyd, this is 1 million miles away. If we thought there was a better site, if I thought there was a better site for this, we would certainly consider that.
Now, the concern from residents, of course, is they say, look, that's all well and good for them to say, we think they just picked this spot because it's convenient for them. What do you make of that?
Well, that's a powerful argument because, Bruce Power is there now, biggest generating plant in the world for nuclear power, and they've been storing it there 40 years worth. Why not just dig the hole and put it in the ground right there? Now, the argument against moving it elsewhere, of course, is that you'd have more trucking to do of nuclear waste to another part of the province. But the residents say it's because of convenience for OPG, Ontario Power Generation.
There are other nuclear waste bunkers around the world. What have the success rates been for those?
Well, there's nothing really that compares totally to the one going in here. But the one that is closest to it in terms of design is Carlsbad, New Mexico. And they had an accident there in 2014 when they were installing some of the material, and there was an explosion, and they had to close that down for 2 years. So these deep geologic repositories have had problems. Now, some of the others in other parts of the world, they're in deep rock caverns, and some of them have been okay, but some of them are in repurposed salt mines, and they've had some problems with leakage and that kind of thing. So the fact is that accidents do happen, and it's avoiding accidents at all costs. It's getting this stuff stored in a way that, there is no way the water can get out. There will be no seepage. Because while they may say that, the water which might seep out, by the time it gets to the lake, 1.2 kilometers away, it would have dissipated. Any radioactivity would have dissipated. Well, there's nobody that could really prove that at this stage because it hasn't been done yet. An
issue of trust. This is so good to take a deep look inside something that is often out of sight, out of mind for a lot of people.
That's right.
But a big concern. Thanks so much for being here today, Lloyd.
7 o'clock tomorrow night.
7 o'clock tomorrow night on Saturday on 7 p.m. at CTV.